This conference will now be recorded.
Dave McLaughlin's great. Good to see you.
Hey, man.
Mr. Chairman, this is Stacy. I've just started the recording just to let everyone know.
Are we good so far?
No, we've got 15 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Adam, can you give me confirmation you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Stacy.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the June 1 PAC meeting to order. Stacy Fine will determine a quorum by calling the roll. Stacy, you're on.
Eric Nelson,
Here.
Bassam Amin, Paul Agnello, Paul, do we have you?
He'll probably be late.
Okay. Rodney White, Wanda Parrish, Leon Hughes, Nick Miner, is that Nick Miner? Kimberly Wilson, Alex, I'm going to mess up your last name.
Oziak, I'm here.
Thank you. Brian Council,
Here.
Jason Towery,
Here.
Mike Fitchum, Craig Pennington, Charles Steigerwald, Sierra Williams.
I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning. Todd Horsley, Jamie Jackson, Craig Reed, Sonali. I'm going to mess up your last name too.
Soneji, good morning. I'm here.
Good morning. Thank you. Christine Hoffner, Ivan Rucker, Lee Anderson,
Good morning, I'm here.
Kate Gibson, and Linda Millsaps.
This is Linda. I'm here. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. And we do, making sure we have quorum, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We do have a quorum, yes. We don't have anyone recorded from Spotsy on the line, though.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Bassam.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Stacy. We'll press on and let those guys join us when they can. Item 3 is approval of the TAC agenda. Are there any additions to the TAC agenda or any questions about it? Going once? Okay. Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Number 4, approval of the May 4 meeting minutes. Those were provided to you. Any corrections, comments? I will note that I sent a certain number of stylistic comments to the FAMPO staff. Nothing substantive, simply stylistic for clarity. No other comments? We need to
Get a motion.
we need a motion to approve.
I will move to approve. Lee Anderson.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second from Stafford.
Thank you. If anyone is opposed to approval of the minutes, please let us know. If not, we'll assume approval through acclamation. Anyone opposed? Thank you. Minutes are approved as corrected. I see that Spotsylvania is on the line. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning. How are you?
We're good.
Sorry we were a couple minutes late.
That's okay. Gave us a chance to talk about you a little bit.
Okay. All good. Eric, good morning, sir.
Rodney.
That would be you.
Yeah. Item 5 is review
Eric?
of the May 18th. Yes.
This is Michelle from VDOT. You have Michelle and Stephen and Susan on from VDOT as well. Thank you.
Oh, very good. Very good. Thank you. Number 5 is review of the May 18 Policy Committee meeting. Adam, you're on.
Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Adam Hager, FAMPO staff. We've got a couple highlights from the May 18th Policy Committee meeting. The first of which is that this is was the first all virtual Policy Committee meeting. We did take action to allow Mr. Kelly as the chairman to sign a letter of agreement with the TPB for performance-based planning and programming. Staff was also directed to start 4 concurrent public comment periods starting on May 20th. And those were for the LRTP amendments and the associated air quality conformity analysis report, the FY21 UPWP, and an amendment to the FY20 UPWP. The FY21 to 24 TIP was approved by the Policy Committee. And then we did have one calendar update that we'll also go over later in this meeting today, where the Policy Committee is going to meet for a second time in June, on June 22nd. And those are all of the highlights, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Any questions for Adam about the Policy Committee meeting? Adam, should I have read this into the record? Do the picture, the declaration?
Do that.
Okay. Again, any comments on the Policy Committee meeting minutes? Okay, if not, I'm going to read something into the record just to help us be legal for a virtual meeting. So here goes. This is at the top of the agenda anyway. Due to the nature of the declaration of a state of emergency due to novel coronavirus, COVID-19, pursuant to Code Section 2.2-3708.2, this meeting is to be held by electronic communications via the web platform GoToMeeting. The catastrophic nature of this declared emergency makes it impracticable and unsafe to assemble a quorum in a single location, and the purpose of this meeting is to discuss or transact the business statutorily required or necessary to continue operations of the public body. Apologize for missing that earlier. We are down to item 6, public comment. Stacy, I understand we have received a written comment. Would you read that into the record, please?
Sure. We have a comment from Mr. Robert Thomas. He's a city resident and Spotsy property owner. Mr. Thomas is concerned that the city sidewalks are too narrow and they are without enough crosswalks. And he mentions that while there are trails in the region, many allow bikes, which he believes pose a danger to pedestrians, particularly older folks. And both of these are health concerns because people need ways to safely exercise and social distance.
Thank you, Stacey. Are there any members of the public attending this meeting who would like to speak? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Item 7. Yes.
Hey, it's Jason from Stafford. I just realized you already did the amendments to the agenda.
Yes.
Is it possible to, for Stafford, just to have a brief, we'll do it verbally, discussion under item 7 here to discuss funding shortfalls on 2 of our projects?
Sure. When do you want to put that in there? Where would work for you?
Maybe under B.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. 7A, study methodology and schedule for review of the FAMPO RSCP CMAQ allocation process. This is something we continue to work on. We have been in discussion with various jurisdictions to try to come to some level of agreement. Stafford has put together some very good draft methodology papers, and these certainly are something we're working with. To remind the group, it's the RSCP that is really at issue. The policy committee has made clear that the CMAQ allocations can continue to be made under current policies, and so we're working to do that. Still within that context, we're looking at the at Stafford's concerns, so we don't want to minimize that or suggest that we're going to overlook that. But we do have to press on with the CMAQ allocations. If we can come to agreement on the RSCP allocations, that will be to everyone's benefit. If not, certainly we intend to have a methodology ready for the policy committee review later in the fall, so that they can have an agreed upon policy in place before the end of the year. So we're working on a couple of things concurrently, and depending on how those go is how we'll actually be able to proceed. But CMAQ allocations, we hope to make or recommend allocations, not at this meeting necessarily, but at a follow-on meeting next week. So that's a process that's underway. And again, we are trying to address Stafford County's concerns, although we also do recognize the MPO rule under which we operate, so that whatever we come up with, in fact, is legally tenable. So that's an ongoing discussion. Does anyone else want to weigh in on that?
This is Jason again from Stafford. No, I'll just say I appreciate the hard work that Alex and Brandon on our end have done, and we also appreciate the strong conversations, good conversations we've had with Spotsylvania and the city on this so far, as well as FAMPO staff, and just trying to develop something that can be brought in front of the TAC and ultimately the policy committee. I think we're making good progress.
Thank you, Jason. I think you're right. Cooperative is one of the key words in all of this. Anyone else want to weigh in? If not, we'll press on to 7B, allocation of the FY26 CMAQ RSTP funds. 7B1 is a funding shortfall on UPC 11110987, which is the Route 208, Route 636, Hood Drive, Hauser Drive intersection improvements. Paul, do you want to jump in there?
Sure, I would be happy to do that. So I'll say at the last TAC meeting in early May, I related that we had a issue with this project and that the cost estimate it appeared was going up significantly. If you look at kind of the sheet kind of that was just there and the one that basically the FAMPO staff are bringing up now, the estimate for the project had been 5.15 million. And the new estimate from VDOT is 6.3 million. That's roughly about it's a little bit over a 22% increase. I'll say that the reason for the increase was not any change in scope. The scope is the same. The county did not make any changes. I'll say that VDOT initially indicated that it was a stormwater management issue was the primary reason for the cost increase. That is still an issue, but VDOT over the course of the past month has indicated there are other issues as well, and that basically with the new information they have available now, they realized that the estimate they developed for Smart Scale Round 2, this was a project in Smart Scale Round 2, was low, and the $6.3 million figure, that is what the new estimate is. So what we would like to do is we would like to come to FAMPO later this month with a request for additional funding, and we are considering that the request for 50% additional funding over the existing project costs, which would be $772,000 and $772 and $500, and to use CMAQ funding to the extent possible, and to supplement that with STBG RSTP for what is needed after that. And I'll say, is there more, Adam, or is this it?
As far as the document, Paul?
Yeah, so this is the documentation of the cost estimate.
Okay.
There also was some documentation, I think, on a proposed transfer policy.
Don't speak.
Right, that's right.
This is.
So what I would say with this is basically this is just
what I want to do. But I want to keep this on in case I want to talk.
So it's kind of hard to hear with the echo.
We got you, Paul.
Okay. So I'll say that basically this is a proposal for basically a transfer policy for CMAQ and STBG RSTP funds for FAMPO. I'll say FAMPO doesn't currently have this. Probably should have this. Let's say Richmond, Tri-Cities, and Hampton Roads have something for this. And this is just kind of a first draft. And what I'll say is we are not thinking that we're going to be able to kind of implement this in the next month or two, but we wanted to have regional consensus on what would be reasonable for basically transfers where you have project shortfalls. Because I said that Spotsylvania, we strongly believe this issue is going to come up again in Spotsylvania, Stafford, and the city, and that going forward we need to have a policy for how to address this. So I just wanted to kind of briefly kind of talk about the thoughts behind this. We scroll down a little bit. And basically the idea here is that for CMAQ rated projects, they would be generally eligible for a increase of up to 10%, provided that the shortfall was not due to a scope increase, and it was an existing FAMPO CMAQ project. And basically with the caveats that basically if a project was less than $1 million in cost, it wouldn't be 10%, it could be a maximum of $100,000. If it was more than $10 million in cost, basically it would be a maximum of $1 million would be the maximum cap. And then for the STBG RSTP, the same type of situation, it would have to have been rated for STBG RSTP, and then with the same limits as CMAQ. And then if a project had been rated for both, it would be eligible for up to 15%. And that basically, in a case where it was rated for both and eligible for both, it would use CMAQ to the greatest extent possible before using the STBG RSTP, since the CMAQ funding is more restrictive than the STBG funding. So basically, with the request for Route 28 Good Drive, it was done basically to be consistent with this policy, even though we recognize this is not an official policy yet. This is just a proposal. But I guess what we didn't want is we didn't want it to be a political process, and we didn't want there to be inconsistency with kind of how these situations are dealt with. Basically, over time, we were hoping that we could get regional consensus on how to address this, so that there's certainty, kind of if you have a situation like this, with how much funding you might be able to get. I'll say that kind of with funding transfers like this, it is obviously subject to available funding. If there's no funding available, that would obviously be an issue that would prevent that. But if the funding was available, we would like to have some kind of transfer policy like this. We're hoping that as part of the CMAQ and the STBG RSTP processes, to review the prioritization processes and the kind of the allocation processes for basically this fall. We hope that this can be part of that process, and that we can work with Stafford and the city to come up with a agreed upon solution for it. So I'll stop here, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Paul. I think you're putting a policy together is a very logical thing to do. We've done these kinds of things in the past, and we've, again, always tried to work cooperatively. A good example, I think, is the Enon Road, which we've got a little, it just needed some additional funds. And again, we cooperatively came together and figured out a way to make that work through a variety of ways. And so this is consistent, certainly, with our tradition of trying to figure these things out on a regional basis. So thanks for putting this together, and I think your project provides a good example on how this could have worked. So thanks. And I know we're talking about this further. Was anyone else like to weigh in on this?
Eric, this is Jason. Paul and I have talked a little bit about this offline. Paul, I appreciate you sharing it. I think we're supportive of determining some sort of policy. I think, and as Paul mentioned, that's probably something that will have to be done this fall as part of the prioritization process. And we do have some other existing shortfalls, and I can go ahead and share on ours now if you'd like. Whenever you're ready for that. Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. I'll go ahead and share then. So just in short, there was some new legislation signed into law just recently here. What happened was there used to be in a lot of localities, I think, are going to end up being affected by this, but I know Stafford has been very directly affected by this. There used to be state recordation tax revenue distribution from localities to localities, about $40 million annually. The legislation changed that down to $20 million annually, and then subsequently dedicated the first $20 million in state recordation tax revenues to the Hampton Roads Transit Program. So effectively, the recordation taxes that the state used to send out to various localities was cut off. And it will, at least for now, be pretty much sent almost in total to the Hampton Roads Transit Program, effective July 1st. That's a month from today. So in short, Stafford right now stands to lose probably at least, well, close to $1 million a year over the next, for the foreseeable future, which is going to affect our ability to place local funds on a couple of our smart scale projects. I've been in conversation with VDOT over the past couple weeks a little bit about this. And again, this was a change that the state initiated. This was not a local change, something that we initiated, but this is going to affect our ability to place funds on a couple smart scale projects. One of the smart scale projects is currently eligible for CMAQ and RSTP funding. That's the Enon Road project. Between FY21 and 22, we had budgeted locally about 1.3. Sorry, I'll get the number out here exactly. $1.341 million in funding, and then an additional, a second project that this is going to affect is our Telegraph Road improvement project, which is not currently an STBG CMAQ project, but which we would like to apply to make an STBG project. And in that case, it's closer to $2 million actually, but in total, we're seeing shortfalls in the ballpark of, year to year of about $1 million, give or take. And in addition, while we could have potentially used fund reserve to do a significant amount of this on our end, our Courthouse Road intersection improvement projects here have also increased in cost, I believe about $6 million. Again, that's another smart scale project. The issue there was, again, not changes in scope from the locality. VDOT had basically advised that we needed to press the pause button on that project while the other interchange improvements were going on up here, and that has caused a few years of delays. So there's additional costs associated with that, as well as other right-of-way costs that VDOT has advised of increasing as well. So we've got, between the three projects, close to about $8 to $10 million in increases over the next, in the immediate next 1 to 3 years, effectively between losing funds and other cost increases. So, and again, those are things that have happened outside of Stafford's control. Certainly we understand, why they've happened, but they've happened outside of our control. So what we are looking to request is approximately $1.6 million over the next in the immediate from any prior FY21 or FY22 potential allocations that may be available. We were looking to put about 1.3 of that on to Enon Road and about $525,000 onto Telegraph Road. Of course, we know we'll need to do an application for that. But in a nutshell, we'll be putting that together in writing, I think, for the June 8th TAC meeting, so that everybody can see exactly where we're at. The other $6 to $8 million we're working on coming up with locally and working with VDOT on revenue sharing, various things of that nature to come up with those shortfalls. So that, in a nutshell, is it. That's what we're looking for on the STBG side of things. And again, we'll happy to put that into writing and bring back more at the next TAC meeting. Thanks.
Thank you, Jason. Your reputation for production.
Hey, Jason, this is Michelle.
Yeah. Hey, Michelle.
Hey, I just wanted to note one thing about Courthouse, and when we're talking about that, and when we move it forward to the next TAC meeting, and if we discuss it at the policy committee, it is correct that VDOT did request the county not put that project forward to construction at the same time that the interchange was under construction. That is not your sole reason for your increase in construction costs, though. the county does not have the project ready to go to advertisement right now, and the interchange is complete. So some of those delays is not a sole reason that VDOT asked you to put pause on the project. The project could have been ready to go to advertisement right now, and it is not. So let's keep that in mind.
Michelle, I'm not saying that this is all on VDOT, but we pressed the pause button on the project, I think 2 or 3 years ago. We are currently right now demoing buildings, as well as performing other right-of-way takes, and we're getting ready to start on our utility relocation. So I mean, at this point, I'm not sure how much farther along we could be, other than actually having the bid documents on the street. But we're, again, the pause button was pressed a few years ago on this, and I think we've kept pace pretty closely on this. So, but again, I'm not suggesting that this is in total, VDOT's fault. I'm just saying that in total, we've experienced, I think, $6 million in increases on that project. And that is part of the reason that we don't have the other funds available, and part of the nature of the overall impact, especially with the recent changes in state law pulling back another $1 million a year. That's my point.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Jason. Clearly, we've got to figure this out. Appreciate the detailed report, Jason. And again, we're going to have to figure this out next week. But we're going to have, well, anyways, we're going to have to figure out how much we have. Say again?
Sorry, just to clarify one thing, we're not going to be requesting any funds for the Courthouse Road intersection. The county's coming up and working with VDOT on those shortfalls. So I think we've already got a lot of that squared away between local funds and revenue sharing. But my point in bringing that in was that we don't have a bank of reserves on our end right now that we can just pull out a bunch of local funds on to help offset the losses of revenue on Enon and Telegraph. Thanks.
Yeah, I understand, Jason. Thank you. All right. Again, that'll be a fun discussion next week, and we're gonna have to come together with a certain amount of info to do that. It might even require some offline discussions. Anyways, appreciate everyone's participation and again, participation in this. Thank you. Let's move on to 7C, Smart Scale Round 4 Technical Guidance. Steve, you're up. That would be Steve Haynes. Stephen, are you on? There you go.
Hey, Stephen, this is Adam. Not sure if you're talking right now, but we don't have any audio from you, but we do see your screen.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Were you muted, Steve?
Apparently I was. Okay, good morning. I assume everyone's able to see my screen now. Apologize for that. I was sure I was unmuted. I've been here talking to you. Let me first start by saying the updated technical guide is currently available on the Smart Portal. And I'd like to preface this presentation by saying that you are already aware of most of the changes that have been incorporated into the technical guide because they applied around 4. Most of what I'm going to present here is an abbreviation of many, many changes. This is probably the most thorough edit that's been made of the technical guide. There were changes on nearly every page, but many, many were subtle changes that were put in place to achieve consistency throughout the document, things like acronyms and all. So I'm going to try to focus on the ones that are most substantive, and here we go. First one I'd like to highlight is one that you're very familiar with, the cap on the number of pre-applications that may be submitted.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Stephen, we lost you again if you're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me again now, Adam?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Can you tell me where the last thing I said that you could hear? I haven't touched the thing. It just happened. I'll just start with this slide right here, okay?
Yep, sounds good.
This is about the cap on the number of pre-apps that changed. Again, all our localities and entities may submit 5 pre-applications, and this was done to prevent large number of applications being submitted that could wreak havoc if a lot of applicants did that to us. The cap on the full app is still 4, and the decision, of course, was made to allow for 1 extra in the pre-app period in case of screen out or some sort of change that the applicant wants to make. The next is the schedule change. You're also aware of this, and the pre-application period was modified. The new schedule that was implemented for round 4 as a pre-app period of submittal of 1 month from March 1st to April 1st, as you well know. There were several changes and enhancements under eligibility requirements. An entire section was replaced regarding transit and rail projects. I'll leave it up to you to read all the details. Only a portion is shown here. I'm just kind of trying to highlight the things that have changed. In case you're interested, you can go again and look at the on the portal at the updated technical guide. Key language here is that eligible transit and rail projects must either expand capacity or increase ridership. Continuing on this section, we also have a new set of guidance on signal controllers, what is eligible and so on. And then the last eligibility change I'd like to highlight is that park and ride projects may now include designated spaces on publicly owned property. It's circled down there in the red. So that's something that may affect a number of our projects, or could in the future in round 5. There's also, if you read the last one over there, transit maintenance facilities without capacity expansion are also eligible funding. Okay, this is a slide with a lot of words on it, but basically this is what we've known all along about minimum planning requirements. An acceptable application must include a detailed description, a sketch that precisely matches that description, and an estimate that exactly matches the description and the sketch. Those 3, the closer they are, the more they match, obviously, the better the application. And this section also goes on to contain some guidance about planning study requirements for the various studies. And again, I'll leave that up to you to go back and take a look at what those say. We've probably communicated this pretty well, I think, to you through this round 4. There's a new guidance on a range of subjects. There's a blurb here, as you can see, on new access points adjacent to an interchange. It includes, for example, that a 4-leg intersection must be a minimum of 1,320 feet from the end of a ramp terminal, and so on. There also is some guidance for park and ride project readiness. Some more on adaptive signal controllers, and so on. So these are just some of the changes that are made. And again, I'm not trying to cover all the details of them. You can go check these out for yourself. Language regarding VTrans need screening process was completely rewritten, but is basically done to incorporate a large number of subtle changes and clarifications. The 4 categories remain. You have corridor statewide significance, regional network, UDAs, and safety needs. Project preparation. Definition of an acceptable schedule has been rewritten with some new clarity, but not a great deal of change, actually. Under cost estimates, the applicant will now, as you know, enter their own contingency assumptions. And that's something that was new, and that's the very last thing at the bottom there. Again, all these are things that are already implemented in round 4. There's a whole lot more words on this slide. I don't expect you to read them all, but under pre-application coordination and submission, a section has been added to address the project readiness at the pre-app stage, because we're focusing so much more now on the pre-app. We want to kind of designate which things we need at pre-app and which things can be provided at the full app. The guidance indicates which types of studies, for example, must accompany a particular type of improvement. And in this information, you can see that an IJR, IMR is required for certain projects and so on. Again, I urge you to go read that. Under delivery and funding section, you find new guidance on how the constrained long-range plan, county comp plans, and all should be identified as they relate to the application. And then we get to the evaluation measures. Under safety measures, you'll see that there are some changes. This one, you can see that the S1 and S2 measures used to be 50-50, now they're 70-30. Again, changes that will potentially affect how a project scores, but you know, there's just a different focus there. And then the big change. This is one that you're certainly aware of because you did it. This is the change from Category A to Category B in the FAMPO area. So now, as you know, FAMPO and all of our children, Stafford, Spotsy, and the city of Fredericksburg are now Category B, where they were Category A. And at the bottom, I put the factor weights by category so you can kind of once again see what that means to you as you apply for projects and where your focus will be in terms of providing the strongest applications and best projects. Economic development went up. And as we get on into some of the later slides, information, I'll show you why that's important, because we kind of redefined a lot of the land use and economic development factors. But economic development increased by 15%, as you can see, and safety increased by 15%. Most of the percentages were taken away from congestion mitigation, which went from 45 to 15. Again, I think all you are completely aware of this, and I don't know of any other changes that occurred to that map except for the one at FAMPO. A few other things that changed, CTB prioritization and planning section. If there's a budget change on a project, the threshold for the need for CTB action has been redefined, and you can see there, for example, on a project of less than $5 million, a 20% or greater increase in funding is required, then it will require CTB action. And so under the environmental quality measures, the entire table, this table 9.4, for potentially impacted areas by type of environmental document was changed. So again, some of these measures were changed based on the history that we've had through rounds 1, 2, and 3, trying to be get the most fair and consistent application of points that we can, so we get the best scores, most accurate, and the most consistent statewide. Another one that's just tons of information, but this is what I was pointing out. Now that economic development measures are so important to the FAMPO area, because it's a higher weighting of these, you'll want to take a real close look at some of this stuff. I won't try to point out all of them here. You can see here that site scaling points have been modified. For now, like a detailed approved site plan scores 3 points. A detailed submitted site plan gets 1 point. An approved conceptual site plan gets 0.5, and a submitted that's an approved conceptual site plan. A submitted one gets 0.25, and so on. So they're just again changes that have occurred. You can see that there are adjustments for access and distance, new definitions. If proposed transportation improvement is direct access to a site, 100% of the area of the buildings is counted, whereas a site not physically adjacent only gets 50%. So on and on. You can see just there's a lot of changes and tweaks that have occurred in the economic development measures. That's about it. I could take questions, but I probably can't answer too many of them because I don't actually have the document open right now where I can help you, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you might want to call me or email to me later. Again, probably the best thing you can do is just go take a look at the new document and read through it and get ready, for the full app and then, of course, for round 5. But okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Steve. That was very helpful. Any questions for Steve at this point? Who's that? Okay. Hearing none, thank you, Steve, again. We'll press on. Public comment period update. Stacy.
Yes, we currently have a public comment period running for 4 different documents, and both of these all of these comment periods will end on June 19th. You can direct folks to our homepage. We have a big blue banner that says public comment, and when they click on that, they'll be taken to short descriptions of each document with links for each document that have resources to review, such as videos, and also resources to give public feedback through short, easy surveys. And these documents are the fiscal year 21 UPWP, an amendment to the LRTP, as well as the related air quality analysis, and then finally the fiscal year 20 UPWP amendment. Are there any questions about the public comment period?
Hey, this is Paul and Rodney. We actually had questions on the smart scale, but we were muted. So I'll say if we can go back to Stephen in a little bit, that'd be great.
Okay. Thanks. Any questions for Stacy? The really nice job on the public participation pages. So those really are very, very cool and I think easy to use. And if I think they are, then they probably are for most people. Okay, going back to Smart Scale. Paul, what do you got?
Yeah, so we have a couple questions. One is, so the application period for the final round of applications for Smart Scale Round 4 opens today. I guess with the technical guide, is it still changing or is it at the finish line?
Paul, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Hey, 6 cents. Actually, the final application period has not opened. I should have mentioned this. It will be delayed. The time of that duration of that delay has not yet been determined. OIP has informed us that it should be less than 2 weeks from today. So you actually probably won't be able to do anything in your full apps, I assume, at this time. And we'll let you know. I'm sure there'll be a blast that'll go out and inform you. There is no plan to extend the deadline, August 3rd, any later at this time. But as you know, with the pre-app, sometimes we get last-minute changes for to allow folks to have more time. So, so you're going to get some information on this in the next several days that will tell you when the full application period is available. And I think that was part of your question. Was it another part?
Yeah, there was one other question. So kind of with round 1, 2, and 3, a lot of times, basically, we received feedback on applications after they were submitted. And I understand that kind of this time we haven't submitted our final applications yet, but I guess with the pre-applications that were submitted back in April, should we expect some kind of feedback from the states, which we can then use to improve our final applications for the final application period when it opens in a couple weeks?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I would expect that almost every one of the estimates will be revisited by our L&D estimating team, and you'll get feedback on that so we can tweak those estimates because there's a lot going on in the background that you don't see. Like our right-of-way folks up to this point have kind of done a general estimate. They're going to get back and look at that with much more specificity to it. So it's going to have, a lot more detail and it'll be a lot more accurate. So there are a number of things coming your way, and we will be in touch with each of the applicants about these things. If we haven't been in touch with you about the pre-application, we still might, but probably not at this point. I think there's very few conversations left that we need to hold prior to the beginning of full application. But let me say this. Please don't enter your full application and hit submit without talking to me at some point, because I don't want you to submit something that isn't ready when we're sitting here working on something. So we need to keep that line of communication open. So that's a very good question. Thank you.
That's a good tip, Steve. Thanks.
Yeah, Stephen, one last question with regards just to kind of statewide meetings or training or kind of education, kind of giving webinars for Smart Scale. Are they planning anything kind of in June or July? I'll say kind of for past rounds, a lot of times they had like a statewide WebEx where applicants could be on that and hear some of the updates.
I expect there will be, and I think that'll come in your whenever WAPE decides to send an email out to all the applicants regarding this change. I think we will have some training communication type of thing available to us. That don't have any more information on that at this time.
Great, thank you, Stephen.
Hi, this is Yada. Can I just add something?
Please, sure.
So there are a couple applications that have transit elements, and we have reviewed those applications. And the comments should be, I know Grant Sparks, he was going through the applications and putting in comments. So I would just go back and take a look at your applications to see if anything pops up on the transit side. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And then I can funnel those through Grant Sparks as well. Because I know we did have some questions on some of the applications as far as the transit elements.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we'll press on to item 7E, 2045 LRTP amendment. Turn it over to Adam.
Thank you, Eric. So we are asking today for tax recommendation on approval of the LRTP amendment that we have here. And again, the primary purpose of this amendment is to update the fiscally constrained project list, be inclusive of Smart Scale Round 3 projects, new tip window projects, a few local projects such as those from the Stafford Bond referendum. We've also removed some closed out projects. To date, I do not believe that we have received any substantial comments for the LRTP amendments, but I am happy to take any questions before we ask for the tax recommendation.
Any questions for Adam regarding Chapter 7? Are we ready to recommend approval to the Policy Committee? If so, I'll entertain a motion. Anyone?
Motion approved.
Who's that?
This is Paul.
Thank you.
This is Alex from Stafford. I second.
Thank you, Alex. We have a motion and a second on the table for approval of, or to recommend approval of the changes to the LRTP. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll assume a yes vote unless you vote no. Anybody voting no today? Okay, then we'll assume or we'll call it a unanimous approval. Thank you very much. Pressing on item 7F, FY21 UPWP draft update. Again, back to you, Adam.
Thanks, Eric. So the version in today's packet has not changed since the May 18th Policy Committee meeting. We have not received any substantial content changes or requests for change. We have received comments, though, from VDOT, and I will quickly highlight those, as well as a couple from locality staff as well. And all of these we are happy to incorporate into what we'll present later to the Policy Committee. So the first one is that we've been asked by FHWA, they want to see a more detailed list of which programs or studies are being funded with RSTP, STBG money. And then they've also suggested VDOT has to include some language around being able to amend bylaws and public participation procedures to address virtual meetings, since in all likelihood, these will probably carry over into the next fiscal year. So we are happy to incorporate that. And then also VDOT has asked us to include language around the fact that the FAST Act expires in September of 2020. So just wanted to make sure that we are able to participate in the dialogue of whatever the subsequent version of that transportation bill will include. We have also received a couple comments just verbally from our locality staff as far as seeing a clearer breakdown of, again, how we're planning to extend CMAQ and STBG money. So what we have attempted to do here, I've got the last page pulled up, is on table 5.2, have a little bit clearer of a breakdown than potentially what we've had in years past. But I will point out that there have been some questions around this as far as, what specifically are we proposing here, and how does this match up with the CMAQ RSTP allocation spreadsheet. So those are a couple items that we are continuing to work on. And so I will, of course, take any questions that the group might have at this point before we take action to recommend approval.
Any questions for Adam? This has been, I think we've had some good work on this to free up some funding for projects. So I think this is going to be a good document in the end. Any questions for Adam? Any further discussion before we recommend approval? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
This is Alex from Stafford, makes motion to approve.
Thank you, Alex. Is there a second?
This is Paul. I'll second.
Thank you, Paul. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? All right. We will assume unanimous vote unless anybody votes no. Does anyone vote no? Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. And the next item is the item 7G, Rural Long Range Transportation Plan. Carrie. Are you with us, Carrie? Okay.
Hey, Terry, this is Adam. It looks like we have you in the meeting, but it looks like you're self-muted. So if you want to either unmute your phone or your computer. Terry, do we have you?
Adam,
Oh,
Carrie.
now,
Oh, there she goes.
Yeah,
I just went there and unmuted all the callers, so it should be.
thanks. I had unmuted myself, but it didn't work.
We hear you now.
Good. Good morning.
Morning.
Here's an update on the Rural Long Range Transportation Plan. Next slide, please. So the 2050 Rural LRTP is a financially non-constrained transportation needs and recommendations list for King George and Caroline counties, and it's part of the FY 2021 Rural Work Program for GWRC. Staff have been collaborating on this 60-page document for the past several months. Through maps, tables, and a narrative text, it describes the population and employment profile as well as projections for the rural region, summarizes the existing transportation network and land use, and identifies highway and active transportation needs and funding sources. Next slide, please. Sections of the rural LRTP include introduction and overview, population and employment, land use, environmental justice, the rural transportation system, safety, commuter services, active transportation, freight aviation, highway needs, active transportation needs, smart scale, and other funding sources. Next slide, please. So we will send the draft document to King George and Caroline staff and present it to CTAC, BPAC, and this committee on June 12th for comment. The final draft will go to the GWRC board July 20th. So that's it, and I'm happy to take any questions.
What is active transportation?
That is our new term for bike and pedestrians. Because it is more inclusive of all different modes that are not using a car.
All right. Any questions for Carrie? I guess not. Thank you, Carrie. Very nicely done.
Thank you.
Next item is 7H, congestion management process update. Matthew.
Yeah, so as a part of the CMP, which we completed last year, there is a performance monitoring program. So Adam, you can go to the next slide. And a part of this program is we run an INRIX congestion scan of these CMP corridors. So I listed all the corridors here, and then one thing of note, there's no data for Route 610 on INRIX, so we could possibly run that on Streetlight, just a note there. So Adam, if you want to you can just kind of slowly scroll through these. So the CMP corridors and INRIX, they're all shown here, and kind of our idea was to run 3 scans to help kind of figure out what we want to do with this for next year. So we ran a scan for January of 2020, all of 2019, and then January 2020 through March of 2020. So those are all listed here for all of the CMP corridors. As you can see Route 3 congestion on there. Yeah, Adam, you can just keep scrolling down. Route 17, Route 1, Route 2, 301. And then also there's a performance chart that you can show as well that kind of shows speed variation on all of these areas as well through all the different time periods. So kind of our question for TAC is for the performance monitoring program for FY21, does anybody have any recommendations or any way you think we should go about doing this? This is something that will be reported, could be quarterly or could be at the end of each fiscal year to TAC and to the policy committees. So if anybody has any suggestions, they are welcome. Otherwise, we'll kind of just figure out which one to go with and move forward with that.
Any suggestions for Matthew and the crew?
So this is Paul. I just had a couple comments. I know that CMP is part of the TPB FAMPO MOU, and there's still some discussions kind of on that with Stafford. So what I would say is we probably need to kind of finish those discussions, maybe to figure out kind of what exactly is recommended for the CMP for FY21 for North Stafford. I'll say with 301 is not in FAMPO.
Right.
And basically with the rural work plan is no longer part of the UPWP. I mean, I would say that 301 doesn't need to be done, and I'll say that Route 3 outside of FAMPO also doesn't need to be done, or Route 17 or Route 1. I mean, I would just stick with FAMPO roadways.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll just have a go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, please.
So we'll just kind of work off those comments and move forward with a couple of ideas and of course, the MOU.
Thank you, Matthew. Next item is 7I, Regional Bike Ped Count Program for FY21. Matthew, you're back at it.
Yep. So as some of you may know, FAMPO has 2 bike ped counts through a company called EcoCounter. Next slide, Adam. So what we're looking to do is use these EcoCounters to kind of do what we've done before in the past couple of years, is get accurate usage statistics and move the counters through various trails and shared use paths through the FAMPO localities. So kind of the plan right now is for FY21 to have 24 counter locations that will be determined by the FAMPO Bike Ped Committee, I believe in July. Each location will be counted 4 times during the year to account for all 4 kind of seasons and variations during the year. So I believe that's a total of 56 days at each location. And then at the end of each year, we'll have an annual report, which will be created as long as a web map detailing the average annual daily usage statistics for the 24 locations. This will be similar to the 2018 EcoCounter report and the web map that's currently on our website. This is just a sample schedule of what kind of the counter locations could look like. So you can see they go through all 4-month periods. And that was it. So this is just more so just an update. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take any.
Very cool, Matthew. Thank you. Any questions for Matthew? I guess we better show up at the July meeting to help with the selection.
Thank you.
Thanks. Item 7J, George Washington Region Transportation Opportunities for Economic Growth Update. Jordan.
Yes, so the George Washington Regional Transportation Opportunities for Economic Growth is a long name for the document, but this document helps to support smart scale projects, and it can be added at the end in the supporting document section as a local regional economic development strategy. And this can be added to, like I said, the local and regional applicants. And we're collaborating with Go Virginia and FRA to update the document. And we are looking to send, well, the first part goes through all the economic projects and economic opportunities in the region. And then towards the end of the document, there's a list of projects related specifically to transportation. And they talk about the projects that we list as significant, but also in the appendix at the end is the projects from the 2045 LRTP and other projects that jurisdictions like to include in the project. So we have this list updated to include round 4 of Smart Scale and the LRTP amendments. And so we want to send each locality the projects that are listed and the updated projects so that they can add and edit them. And then we're planning to send that out later today to get you your input for the document.
Fantastic. Any questions for Jordan? Apparently not. Thank you, Jordan. That looks very good. Next item, 7K, FY21 FAMPO schedule. Adam.
Thanks, Eric. So here is our sort of draft kind of proposed FY21 calendar here. So this does sort of follow the same format as typical FAMPO sort of months where we have a TAC meeting, then our CTAC, then our policy committee. There are some sort of odd weeks in FY21 as far as holidays, which have sort of pushed us to move the TAC meeting back or a little bit forward to sort of account for that process that will allow us to have a TAC meeting roughly 2 weeks before a policy committee meeting. We are happy to take any comments or suggestions for other dates, but as of right now, this is sort of what we're calling our draft FY21 calendar. So feel free to review that and let us know if you have any questions or suggestions. I will point out in the near term for June, and a couple of folks have alluded to this already, but we are going to be having a second June TAC meeting next Monday, June 8th. So we will be sure to distribute the agenda for that meeting, and the primary focus of that meeting is going to be for CMAQ and potential RSTP allocations. So it will be an abbreviated agenda, but of course the entire group here is welcome to attend that meeting, so we will get that notice out as always by Thursday. So we also do have, I think I mentioned earlier, a second policy committee meeting as well. So we're kind of stacked full with meetings this week as far as our staff goes. So or this month rather, I should say. So we do have, of course, next week's June 8th TAC meeting, and then the following 2 Mondays after that, we'll have policy committee meetings. I will point out as well, and we'll make sure this is clear in our notice and on the website, that the second policy committee meeting on the 22nd is going to be at 6 p.m. because there is no GWRC board meeting before that. So to allow for not quite as long of a night, we'll have that at 6 p.m. And I'm happy to take any questions on the sort of calendar for this month or any dates that you see here for FY21.
Any questions for Adam? And again, comment on this as you study it later as well, if need be. Pressing on, we've come to the election of officers. Typically in July, we swap over and we match the jurisdictions, the jurisdictional chair on the policy committee. So this year, it's going to be Stafford's turn. I'll continue to chair the next June meeting, but then in July, Stafford will take over the chair. Stafford, have you guys determined who's gonna chair the FAMPO TAC committee next year?
Alex. Sucker.
All right. And then vice would be Spotsylvania, right? Okay. Who's Spotsy? Who's going to be the mayor of Vice?
It would be me. This is Paul.
Okay. Okay, so we need to. I guess that's the nomination. This is the slate would be for Alex to be the chair next year and Paul to be the vice chair. We don't.
Just take a vote.
Just take a vote. Yeah. We'll assume a unanimous vote unless anybody votes no. Is anybody object and wish to vote no? If nothing else, just to aggravate Alex. Hearing none, we'll say that the slate is approved unanimously by acclamation. Thank you. Correspondence. Adam, we have anything? No correspondence. Staff reports. Anything, Adam? Any staff reports from member jurisdictions? VDOT.
So this is Paul from Spotsylvania. I had a question for VDOT if there was any update on the transition alternatives when project selections that might be done.
Hi, it's Susan. No, Paul, we have not. There's lots of questions, and I think revenues is the biggest question. So I think they're down there working hard, and as soon as we hear something, I will make sure that I send it out immediately, but that's where we're at. I think a lot of it comes down to what the revenues forecast is going to be. And some say it's not as bad, and some say it's really bad. And so I know they're down there trying to figure that out, but I still do not have any answers on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Any other reporting from VDOT, VDRPT?
Nothing from DRPT.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Hey,
VRE, yes.
This is Susan again. Hey, I know y'all had mentioned on the allocation sheet that y'all wanted to take off the regional bike and pedestrian planning UPC number.
Right.
So I was working on that, but I happened to notice that we're still getting bills from GWRC on that UPC number. So I guess I question if we're still using it, why are we closing that one out?
Hey, Susan, this is Adam. Our plan is to not send any more bills for that UPC after this fiscal year. So there won't be anything after June of this year.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
VRE, any report for VRE? RPT we went through. Any jurisdictional reports? Fredericksburg, we don't have anything.
Nothing from the city.
Nothing. Spotsylvania?
Nothing.
Stafford?
I don't have anything, but I would like to know if VDOT has any further information regarding RSTP or Transportation Alternatives funding awards.
I think Susan indicated we were still awaiting word on that from Richmond. Caroline County, King George County, Fred.
No additional comments.
Okay. Anybody I've missed who would like to report on activities?
The only thing, Eric, this is Craig from Fred. With the COVID-19, we've had scaled back activities. Last week of March, all of April, and part of May, and then we're now beginning to ramp back up to full service, but probably won't be there for a little while yet.
Okay, thanks. Are you guys like issuing face masks to people that get on the bus without them?
I don't know what the decision was on whether we're issuing them or not. I only saw the message that went out that said that passengers will be required to have them. We have had our drivers doing extra bus cleaning, and we're in the process of contracting for a cleaning service that would pick up from there, and I would imagine would continue even after all the COVID-19 dies down.
Right. Thanks.
Eric?
Yes.
Eric, can you ask VDOT if they can, tell us the status of the Chatham Square project in terms of when closed, when, things like that?
Oh, you talking about the bridge?
Yes.
Anyone at VDOT can update on the when the bridge is going to close?
Hi, this is Michelle Bassam.
Hi, Michelle.
I don't have the exact date, but I know it's getting very close to when we're going to close. I'll work to get you the exact date. I know we had our and it's still up online on YouTube. Last week we had our virtual Pardon Our Dust meeting.
Okay.
Did not have a firm date in that meeting either, but we will be putting out, obviously, excuse me, press releases before the firm date closure.
Sure. We got a lot of questions on that one. We keep saying maybe next month. So,
this is next month.
Yeah, I think it's next month, but who knows? That's.
Yeah, we're nothing.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Is there any other business to bring before the committee? If anyone has joined the meeting while we were in progress, make sure that you check in with Stacy so that she can make sure that you're included on the roster. If there's nothing else to bring up, we'll stand adjourned. Our next meeting is on the 8th of June, and then after that, we're into the next fiscal year. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.